Hi, welcome to this episode of Herald Cafe. Today we've got a political commentator, journalist and a columnist. Neerja, welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
And congratulations for the book that you have come up about. And it's glad to get you for a conversation here about this book. How the Prime Ministers Decide. It's an interesting title, it talks about the decision-making power of the Prime Ministers, and I believe you have wrote about 6 Prime Ministers.
That's
over
right.
there. Yeah. My first question will be, what is the genesis of the book? How did the idea came up about?
Look, let me first thank you.
Yes.
It's just marvelous to be in your office, Herald. It's an institution in Goa.
Yes.
And so I feel very privileged to be here. Yes, the book has decisions by 6 Prime Ministers. It's not a biography of 6 Prime Ministers.
Right.
It is 6 Prime Ministers and how they took major decisions.
Okay.
So I take Indira Gandhi,
Okay.
Rajiv Gandhi, VP Singh, PV Narasimha Rao,
Okay.
Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Dr. Manmohan Singh. Those are the 6 I've covered.
Okay.
And I have looked at specific decisions by them. Indira Gandhi, much has been written about Indira Gandhi, how she carved out the new nation of Bangladesh,
Of course.
the emergency, and what happened during the emergency, how she made that decision. But I decided to look at why in 1977 she went in for elections. She was on top of the
Yes.
situation,
Of course,
the economy was doing well, there were no sanctions against India, she had a grip over everything because of the emergency, and yet she decided to go in for elections in which she lost badly.
Yes.
1977.
Yes. Tell us
So
about
why?
that. Yes.
What made her go for elections?
Yes.
And then in 33 months she was back in power.
What play was this?
Very few world leaders had managed that, and she was routed. I mean, you are too young to remember this, but she was routed all over North India. So that is what I've looked at. How did she manage to come back to power, and how her youngest son, who was responsible for her defeat in 1977 as an extra constitutional authority, was the one who helped her come back to power. So it's a very fascinating tale of what real politics is all about.
Wow.
So that is Indira Gandhi. Then Rajiv Gandhi, I look at how he dealt with the challenge stemming out of the Shah Banu judgment.
Yes.
And whereas he was forward-looking, futuristic, did many things, which were, he wanted to take India into the 21st century, and yet the hold of caste and religion on the Indian psyche, which he didn't fully comprehend, was his undoing.
Talking about Rajiv Gandhi, I remember that Assam Accord happened in 1987. Goa got statehood, like so many things, and the IPKFs was sent to Sri Lanka. He's very progressive in that sense. Can you tell us more examples about his decision-making style? Because I believe the top Achilleans, they do not get an autonomy to make decisions, right? We are a democracy, we are a federal of states, and we always have gatekeepers to tell you what to do, how not to. It's like a representative democracy. In that context, how much power does the Prime Ministers have to take a decision independently? Are they free agents?
Yeah. That you've asked me in the beginning, why did I decide to write a book like this? Yeah. I did, I've now done political coverage for close to 40 years.
Yes, Indian Express. Yeah.
I was political editor of the Indian Express for 10 years, and I'm still a contributing editor of the Indian Express.
And your column is widely recognized.
Thank you, that's very kind of you.
Yes.
So while doing political coverage, I very quickly realized that what we think outside is not the real story.
Okay.
How Prime Ministers, for instance, decide is not the way an ordinary person on the street would think that's the way it happens.
True.
So what are the pulls and pressures on them, as you're saying? What are the, the survival instinct? The opponents out to get them, the knives are out for them.
Yes.
What are the pressures, internally, externally that they have to contend with? And no Prime Minister writes on a clean slate.
True.
They after all inherit a certain situation. So how the machinations, the manipulations,
Yes.
and I often used to say, politics is about drama.
Okay.
And I wanted to write this book, I must admit, I wanted to write this book like a drama. Suspense and, what really goes on to capture that. And I really wanted the millennials to read the book. My generation is, when you read something like this, it's going down memory lane.
True, true.
But I would like the younger people
to know the nuances, to know the subtleties.
No, not only subtleties, but what happened. And read it like a drama. So I was very thrilled when one of the reviewers said it's a bit like a political thriller. So that made me very happy because my hope was that the younger people would read about it. The historical, the rich historical legacy, good and bad, that we've had, and the maturing of Indian democracy for all its fault lines, that took place under successive prime ministers. Of course, I have not covered the present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, but
maybe in your second coming up book, you can write.
Who knows?
Yes.
That's right.
And I would like to ask you, what are the challenges you found in yourself of self-censoring? What is going to be published and what you are keeping back? What are the challenges in that?
The material I began to collect over the years.
Yes.
Somewhere at the back of my mind, I wanted, someday I'll write a book. So if I go as a working journalist to see somebody, a politician or a bureaucrat, and you normally have chats with them, at least used to have chats with them.
Of course.
Now it's becoming much more difficult and rare about other things that are going on. And I would keep notes, very, copious notes.
Okay.
And so those notes, interviews over the years have come in very handy. And essentially I wrote the book during the COVID years.
Okay.
I mean, I knuckled down to it, and my life was really, those 2.5, 3 years was my computer, the bed, the dining table, and a terrace where you walked.
Got it.
During those COVID years. So it was intense and it was exciting. And when I signed up to do the book with Aleph Publishing Company, I found, when I looked at my notes, I found what treasures I had.
Right.
And could use. Some people had passed away, and some additional interviews I did with people who were around, and some on the phone, some. So it was, putting it all together, how these 6 prime ministers made major decisions. Vishwanath Pratap Singh, Mandal decision.
Yes.
Affirmative action for the other backward classes.
Yes.
And Narasimha Rao, the non-decision allowing the Babri Masjid to come down, which changed politics for the following decades.
Yes.
Vajpayee, how he did the nuclear test.
Yes.
And Dr. Manmohan Singh, how and why he went in for the Indo-US civil nuclear deal, which changed India's relationship with the United States of America and the Western world.
Yes.
So those are the things I looked at, and
talking about the Aleph publishers, what was the editorial point of view from their side? Any interesting anecdotes you want to say?
Yes, David Devdar, who heads the Aleph company, is a hard taskmaster.
Of course he is. Yeah.
He's a perfectionist. He set a punishing schedule for me. It was the deadline after deadline after deadline, and the book would never have been completed when it was completed, but for him.
Nice.
And and in helping to give a framework to this book, how it should be structured. He had made very valuable contributions, and he and his team he did a lot of work, painstaking work on the book. And I wanted, as I said, I wanted it written as a drama, not as beautiful prose. So So the book is where it is, out there now, yes.
And you've been keenly observing the contemporary politics for so long, you know, like 50 years. Any markers, any identity markers that is changing that you want to speak about?
Indira Gandhi I spoke about. Indira Gandhi was known for immense courage, charisma.
Yes.
And I must tell you this story. I was recently in one of the villages in Maharashtra.
Okay.
And they were meeting with about 24 young women, 16, 17, 18, early college. And so I asked them, it's a question I asked, either who's your favorite prime minister, or have you heard of these prime ministers at all, younger people? So I asked them, who's your favorite prime minister? In one voice, they all said Indira Gandhi. I was shocked.
Okay.
I thought, decades after.
Yes.
And I think there is this enigma, charisma, this, and only woman prime minister, of course. So that is an added attraction, I suppose, for younger women. But Indira Gandhi also introduced something which led to the degeneration of politics. What is called Sam Dam Dand Bhed.
Yes.
Real politics, power at any cost. You get the better of your opponent at any cost. Going over the head of her party directly to the masses. And these are things, generations of politicians who followed her across party lines studied about her. VP Singh used to say that she's my mentor. And many people told me who were in the BJP that Narendra Modi had also very carefully studied Indira Gandhi and her techniques of, she understood power. She understood the nature of power. She understood statecraft. And once she had told UP politician, she said, "Mera baap sant tha, main nahi hu."
Wow, that's a statement.
So, she was a toughie in that sense.
Yes.
And that is what fascinates people about her. She was started off being, she was called by Ram Manohar Lohia, socialist leader, Gungi Gudiya, when she took over.
Yes. But totally flipped.
And Nixon, US president, called her, if I recall right, this old witch.
Yes.
And Morarji Desai, who she got the better of and became prime minister in 1966. This chokri, and yet she got the better of each one of them. So there is something very admirable about her, and there's also something, as I say, the degeneration of politics began there.
Okay.
Where she didn't believe in ideologies. At various points in her life, she was left in when she was abroad. And 50s, when she became Congress president in end 50s, she turned rightwards. 66, when she became prime minister, she brought P.N. Haksar. She became left again, and she brought in, bank nationalization, the slogan Garibi Hatao. And then when Sanjay came on the scene,
then again
she turned right again, and she continued to be right. And she said very clearly statements that I don't believe in isms. So she believed in power and understood power. So there are those sides of Indira Gandhi that are very fascinating. I suppose, and each prime minister, as you look at them and their decision-making styles, is fascinating. More fascinating than you think. VP Singh, for instance, I go and ask young people, have you heard of Nehru? Yes. Shastri? Yes, younger people have heard of Shastri. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Morarji Desai, no. Charan Singh, no, unless you're in UP. But Rajiv Gandhi, yes. But VP Singh, invariably the answer is no. And sitting with groups of young men and women who have been recipients of the policy of job reservations in government services as OBC, they have not heard of VP Singh. And I found, certain prime ministers were cultified by their parties and, their persona built and magnified, and certain ones were not owned, and VP Singh was one of them. But fascinating. In 11 months, how he changed he changed the politics of India, and that process is irreversible.
True.
That Mandal process, OBCs, and now today's dispensation is looking at the most backwards amongst them. Then the Dalits, the Mahadalits amongst them. So
MOBC,
power moving down to those groups that were on the peripheries of power. That process he started. So as I say, every Prime Minister has been very fascinating to look at.
I remember that self-immolation of Rajiv Goswami, you know, the streets of Delhi. That was that photograph is still very vivid.
Against the Mandal decision. He immolated himself.
Yeah.
He survived, but he died 11 years later because of the injuries that he had sustained.
It's very interesting talking to you, but I think we're coming to an end for that time. You know. Lastly, I would like to ask you, you've been coming to Goa for like pretty often you come here, and anything about your love for Goa? You would like to say something about Goa?
You know, you just drove me through the countryside. You brought me to this studio, not taking the highway, but these beautiful winding lanes through the Goan lush green countryside. And it is like, it's therapeutic.
It is.
To come here.
Healing,
And what you've been telling me, you know, nobody below poverty line, the impressive health system here.
Road access.
Yes, and I suppose how life should be lived. It's not a rat race. People make good, people earn their money, but you know, something to learn from Goa.
Yeah, we've got this concept
The
called
rest of
Susegad.
India to learn from Goa.
Yes, people are saying that now, even a lot of people. Thank you for your time, madam.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I hope more and more people, more and more young people read this book. And it's available in Amazon also.
Yes, at a discount.
At a discount,
yes.
Right. And in all the bookstores, I think, across India and abroad also.
Yes, it's gone for a reprint.
Okay, it's
Very
gone for
quickly,
reprint?
within a week, yes.
Wow,
Yes,
congratulations, nice.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot once again. Thank you, audience. It was great talking to Neerja ma'am about her new book and her sharp, keen political observations. And we from Herald, we wish her all the best. And we'll see you again next week with one new guest. Thank you.
Thank you.